Hey folks, welcome back to FreepCast. We have a special episode today. My name is Robb Murray, here with Joe Spear, the managing editor. We're also here with Will Coghill-Behrends, who is the Dean of Global Education at Minnesota State University, Mankato. And the reason it's kind of a special episode is there's a lot going on in the community and at the university, especially with international students and ICE and visas. And we brought in Will to answer as many questions as we could about what's going on. So Joe's got a list of questions here. Why don't we kick it over to Joe?
Yeah, Will, wow, like you say, it's been a crazy couple of weeks, something never before really experienced on the MSU campus. Many of us been here 30, 40 years and haven't seen anything like this. And President Inch said the same thing, I think, in one of his first statements. And the community is continuing to be concerned, and we know ICE detained one student, which we know very little about because, as President Inch said, they really didn't tell us anything. Apparently don't have to. Also, we're confirming, I think the university confirmed, now 8 students have had their visa canceled. So things are happening here, and I think it's good to just get out there in the community and kind of give them as much information as we possibly can, which is a lot of times the goal of this podcast, just what's going on and kind of cover the basic questions people will have. But from your perspective, what does this feel like at the university right now?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, obviously this is really unsettling for our international student community, for our faculty and staff who support those students and who have done a wonderful job of really building up Minnesota State as an international destination. I just returned from some work in India, and in almost every session I was at, our name is a recognized brand. We really are a leader in international education across the world. And so MSU is a destination, and this is really unsettling. It's scary for students. It's scary for faculty. And like you said, we've not been here before. You referenced 8 student record terminations. The new number today, unfortunately, is 12. We've had a few additional terminations in the last couple of days. And again, working with our teams on campus to make sure we're providing the students who are immediately impacted the support, but recognizing that, as you just sort of alluded to, that this really does impact every single student on campus.
Yes, and we had in our first story some ways the university can assist these students, setting up informational sessions. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we're working hard to provide sort of a lot of interventions in the immediate term, right? So those supports most immediately for the 12 students impacted, but also hosting listening sessions, town halls for all students to attend, to learn about what's happening, to learn about the distinction between a CVIS records termination and between a visa revocation. Looking at the ways in which this impacts students differently than maybe situations in the past. So we're trying to just do all that we can to support everybody.
And I've read a few articles about it. Seems like it's sort of a complex system, and a lot of news reports don't go into it. But can you just walk us through a little bit? You mentioned the difference between a CVIS record and a termination of a visa. What is the difference between those two things?
Sure. So CVIS stands for Student Exchange Visitor Information System, and it's the database that was developed for international student records maintenance following 9/11. It's the database where we track, monitor, and report to the feds all of the international student activities and the interactions with our campus. Now, when I say track and monitor, I recognize that those words carry sort of a special meaning in this particular moment. And so let me be clear. Tracking and monitoring for us, in terms of our responsibility to maintain those records, to be the custodian of those records on behalf of international students, refers to ensuring that students come here when they say they're going to come here, ensuring that they're following the rules of their associated visa, like registering for a certain number or percentage of in-person classes, if they choose to work on campus, getting the requisite employment authorization, if they choose to work off campus, because some students have the ability to do that, depending on their status or their visa status, providing the authorization to do that. So it's sort of the way that we keep students in compliance and make sure that they're following the rules of the obligation and the commitment that they've made to be students in the United States.
So there's some oversight of that. So how often does MSU check this record to make sure everything's
So anytime we have an interaction with one of our international students, an immigration appointment, we're making entries into the record.
Okay.
What makes this present moment so unique is that these records were terminated without any sort of warning to us. And while I'm new to MSU, what I can say from past experience and from what the experience has been on our campus in terms of DHS and ICE interaction with students and with our staff is that anytime there has been in the past a need for ICE to check in on a student, to look at compliance, et cetera, they've always called ahead of time. These records were simply terminated without any sort of notification. In fact, the only reason they came to our attention was because we were hearing in some of our professional circles that our colleagues at other universities across the U.S. were discovering some terminated records. So on Friday the 28th, we did a scan and indeed identified 5 records that were terminated.
So you can do a search of all the records and see if there's anything happening. And this is 1,700 records or something like this, number of students.
A little bit over 1,800 students.
So the SEVIS record was terminated, just gone. So what does that lead to?
The SEVIS record is also where the university houses a document that we call the I-20. The I-20 is literally titled Certificate of Eligibility and provides for an individual's eligibility, or it's sort of like their contract from the university with the student and with the government that we've invited them to come study here. It's important to understand that student visas are among the most vetted visas in terms of all visa classes, right? So students have to attend a visa interview. There's a complex application process. They have to demonstrate us a financial ability to pay and be here. And so it's not an easy visa, to say the least.
Okay.
And so this I-20, which is terminated, terminates their authorization to be in the U.S.
Okay.
A visa is an entry document, right? So that just gets you into the country.
Okay.
The I-20 is what allows you to be here.
Okay. So the I-20, the record that connects the I-20 is gone, so you no longer have authorization by any record to be here.
It's simply been terminated with a reference to a compliance issue.
And is there a directive you have to give students to when that happens, you have to go home?
So typically it is required of the student to leave the U.S. In this situation, there are opportunities for students to apply for reinstatement, seek a different kind of visa status, say asylum or more permanent residency. But typically when this happens, and again, this is sort of where we're in new territory, we've already been working with the students to recognize that there may be an issue and that they need to rectify this. This without warning termination of the record sort of puts all of us at limbo. The good news is some legal experts that we work with have indicated that there may not be an immediate need for the students to leave and that we can work with the students to support them in reinstatement efforts and this sort of thing.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I don't think that's been out there yet, and I think people will take a little comfort in knowing these students have just no recourse and are gone and cannot do anything in a system that doesn't seem like it was operating totally fairly.
Yeah, and if I may interrupt and clarify, though, there is some disagreement about that, and so
on the legal rights.
Yeah, this is sort of where we're in a bit of a special moment, I think.
Sure. So
have you been given any of the rationale behind any of these? I mean, you've heard nothing, right?
So, yeah, we haven't heard directly from ICE. There are compliance issues noted in the record. Unfortunately, because of student privacy, I can't share those related to our students, but can share that broadly across the U.S., these have been related to compliance, related to employment, related to scans and scrubs of social media that have any reference or any indication of what the government is calling anti-Semitic activity, and reference to criminal records checks.
Interesting. So what do you feel like is kind of the general mood of the international students? We had a story on the front page of today's paper from a student journalist who runs the Reporter, and she interviewed a lot of the students, many, of course, who did not want to give their name out of fear. But the general mood of the students, how do you feel it is?
So, in any situation, it's important to remember that international students are not a monolith. At the same time, I think it's easy to understand that most of our students are worried. Most of our students are scared. Most of our students are confused because this nation has been one that has been historically so welcoming. Our community is so welcoming, and so they're sitting sort of with the paradox of this moment, right?
Yeah.
Coming here to pursue an education that they're paying for, that they want, that they desperately are working to finance through family and family sacrifice. And suddenly there's sort of this message, that is really strong and really pervasive. And that's a hard thing for us even in international ed to stomach, right? Because we do everything we can to remind students how much we want them here, how much they add to our communities. I think all of us have international friends, and we know the way in which our interaction with them improves our lives, makes our lives richer, right? And
Absolutely.
for that to suddenly feel at risk is problematic.
And I believe, having known some of the people who support the international student community here, there's a strong support system, would you say?
Most definitely.
From the community, but also the university. And it sounds like the university is doing everything they can, providing counselors, for example, people who are scared, suffering from mental health, things like that. That's readily available to all these students.
Absolutely. Yeah, and not just students. Like I said, this is an issue that we know impacts our faculty and staff who care deeply about students. And so we've been good, I think, to remind our faculty and staff about employee resources as well.
And I wonder if you've heard from students that maybe I should leave. It'd be best if I did, and then we wouldn't have to suffer through this. Have you heard anything like that or thoughts?
Yeah, I haven't personally heard that.
Okay.
In fact, the message that I've heard from our international students on campus has been quite the opposite. It's that they love MSU, that they love Mankato, that they've been openly embraced, et cetera. Of course, I think we're hearing about students who feel that way, and we're encouraging students to do what feels best. We are reminding students that if they travel and leave the U.S., there is an increased risk that they will be denied reentry regardless of their visa status. And so we're just in a particular moment. And so I noticed, people have been asking, what can I do? How can we help? And I think it's continuing to remind international students that you're in contact with, international faculty, scholars, our neighbors in the community, even if they're not students, right? That we want them here, that they make our communities better, that we value what they bring to us. And I mean, this is the United States of America. We are a land of immigrants. We are a land that was built by that free trade and travel across borders, right? And so the paradox and the contrast in this particular moment feels particularly damaging to who I believe we want to aspire to be as Americans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you looked or thought down the road the impact this might have on students wanting to come to this country and to this university? I mean, do you guys worry as an institution that, there's a lot of students that come here, I think they all pay full price when they come here, which is financially important for the university. I mean, has there been talk about what happens if, because of all of this, that number gets cut by a third or by half?
Yeah, we're, as you know, as a state institution, already deeply entrenched in discussions about budget and what budgets will look like in this new landscape. Of course, international students, in addition to all of the sort of humanistic and intellectual benefits they bring to our community, certainly do support the bottom line. We are in a unique space at the moment because in addition to what's happening and the news that's getting out there, we're seeing a pretty stark increase in visa denials for student visas around the world. I recently read a report that said they're up from 26% to around 41%. That's the entire world. In addition to consular and embassy delays and students' ability to get visa appointments. And now with this complicated news coming out of the States, certainly families and students are likely second guessing. One thing I would say, though, that gives me hope, and that is, again, I had a wonderful meeting yesterday with a bunch of international students, and they affirmed all of the feelings that we've talked about, but they also said, this place is my second home. I'm so surprised by the outpouring of support, right? And our students have always been our best ambassadors, right? So our students who come here and have a good experience are always the best people to tell that story abroad. And so we hope that they continue to do that. We recognize that there is not just a perception of an increased risk, but what actually feels like an increased risk for them. And we're doing all that we can to combat that narrative, but it's not easy at the moment, as you can imagine.
And are we advising students, and I'm guessing they would just make this decision on their own, to be very careful about what they put on social media?
Most definitely. In fact, the federal government has now issued some guidance about that in particular. And so I referenced one of the reasons that they're giving, which is anti-Semitic activity. I want to be clear about something, which is I think they are broadly interpreting, they meaning federal authorities, what anti-Semitic activity looks like and means, right? It sort of seems to be conflated with anything that might be anti-current administration, anti-foreign policy, and that's being sort of wrapped up with what might be considered a national security risk. One of our jobs at a university is to prepare people to be critical consumers of information in society, right? We want people to have an opinion, to speak out, right? And so that contrast, the federal government has also issued guidance that social media scans will now be a part of all new visa visa appointments. And we've heard that several visas that have been granted for the fall, not at our institution, but from peers again across the U.S., have been revoked because of new information that has come to light, aka they found something in somebody's social media. These are young people. Yeah. Young people feel passionately, and this is what we love about young people, right?
About many things, yes. And my question earlier on kind of self-deporting, the criticism is that this is the goal of the current administration, to scare people enough that they will self-deport and we won't have to really round everybody up. Any thoughts about that?
I think that I'd rather not comment on specific strategies because I'm not able to be in the minds of people who are making decisions about this. But we recognize that students are making a lot of decisions about their lives, about their futures, and that certainly the present moment and the current context in this country is likely making people think about their safety and whether that includes sort of their vision for themselves here.
Well, as you pointed out earlier as well, it's a very different system now that they're doing with, they used to have communication with you when there were a lot of issues and let's talk about it, and now it's nothing, more or less.
Yeah,
so that can't be good.
It's a different moment for sure.
We may be bumping up on the time we have with you, but can you talk a little bit about the kind of the life that these students bring to campus? I'm thinking of the International Festival and Asian Student Group Night, all those things that happen.
Yeah.
Every week there's something like that going on campus, and it brings so much life to campus.
Absolutely. This is a really remarkable place. When I came here to interview last spring, you could just feel it. There are international students everywhere. We have over 1,800 students from 108 different countries around the world. So, even for our domestic students, when you come to school here, you're really at school in the world.
Yeah.
And that makes your learning experience different, right? What you take with you into your future employment to be able to say, I have experience working with people from all over the world already in classes and my projects. And our faculty are very good about structuring those kinds of learning environments and learning moments, right, to ensure that we're building intercultural capacity, intercultural communication skills. This is really a remarkable place. We do this really well. And I don't want that to be in jeopardy. And, we celebrate, as you referenced, this population through our International Festival, which coincides with International Education Week in November every year. We're approaching the 50th anniversary of that, and so we're planning a really big party. That won't be this year, but in 2 years. And like you referenced, a number of other events. Not only that, but our international students really do get fully engaged in the community. I would like to remind everybody that our student government president right now, Roshit Narula, is an international student. Next year's vice president, Sneha, is an international student, right? So our international students, not only do they come here and get an excellent education, they integrate. They become a part of us. They become a part of our community. And it's truly, it would be a pity for us to lose that opportunity for the community, for our domestic students, for everybody. It will be everybody's loss if this continues to get worse.
I work with a few of them at the student newspaper, and they're almost always the most dedicated people on staff.
They're incredible. They inspire me every day and remind me why I do this work.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You referenced a little bit what the community can do. Maybe you can just leave us with some, we should embrace people we know, encourage them, say we're here. What else can the community do?
Yeah, I think everybody needs to be to share how they feel right now. Everybody needs to talk about the way in which our engagement with international communities, whether they be our students at MSU or our international students at Bethany, Gustavus, all of our local higher institutions of higher ed house international students and host international students. There are tons of members of our community. Reach out, check in on your neighbors, right? Because even though the headlines right now are really focused on students, I promise you that every international student or individual, every whether they've been here for just they're a recent transplant or they've been here for a long time, they're all feeling that, right? So talk about what they mean to you, talk about what they bring to you in your world. I think that people need to do what they can to make their opinions heard about what's happening at the moment, and there are lots of ways that people can engage in that.
To elected leaders and
absolutely,
officials. Yeah.
That's one way to do it.
Okay.
I think people can seek out opportunities to intentionally engage with international students. Again, I welcome the community regularly to our international events on campus. We're sort of winding down as the semester comes to an end. Given the increased risk for travel for international students, we anticipate a much larger international student population remaining here in this community this summer. And so we are proactively planning some events. Some of them will be community-facing events. And so we'll be sure to get the word out through the Free Press, through other opportunities to bring our community together, to remind international students again how much they mean to us and to really celebrate their time here.
Will you have to make arrangements for them to live? Because usually the dorms kind of clear out at the end of the
Yeah, most of our international students live in apartments, and so we will definitely be thoughtful about any sort of housing needs. And President Inch, who's just been incredible in terms of his leadership through this moment, I can promise you is 100% committed to ensuring that international students experience as little disruption as possible, and thankful for his leadership, and thankful for David Hood, our provost, who has been with me this entire time, and and really checking in on the regular with me, with our staff, with our students. Super excited about, again, this opportunity that we're going to have this summer with an increased number of our students who are here, right, who haven't had the chance actually to experience beautiful Mankato summer. Too bad they're going to have to find out about the mosquitoes, which are worse than Minnesota snow. Again, looking forward to what fun we're going to have this summer in spite of this hard moment.
Please keep us in the loop, and the university has done a good job keeping us abreast of this issue, which is very important to the entire community and just where we're at right now. And as you say, I wholly endorse people speaking their mind and letting their elected leaders know how these things are affecting their communities.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you.
All right. Will Coghill-Behrends, Dean of Global Education at Minnesota State University, Mankato, thank you so much for coming on. This has been enlightening, really interesting, and you get a great voice for radio, by the way.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Always been my dream.
Thank you for
Let me know if you're
coming.
hiring.
Come back anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You class us up a little bit. All right.
We're going to take a break.
Take a break here. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back. We want to thank Will Coghill-Behrends again for being with us.
That was
a
great.
Fantastic breakdown of what's going on.
Yeah. And we're happy to spread that far and wide. It'll be on our YouTube channel, all our social media in full. So feel free, by the way, to share it to your groups. Share it on social media. Really fantastic. Glad we had him in. We've got to mention our sponsor, Minnesota Valley Federal Credit Union. They support this program, so they support things like we just had a great program with great information from Will, who is the Dean of Global Education at the Minnesota State University. So thanks to them. A few other things. It was kind of a really busy, newsy week, Rob. We had this issue, the ICE issue, which continues to be a story. He gave us kind of a scoop. Now they have 12 students who have been, as we understand it now more clearly, deleted from the system, which means they're no longer eligible to be in the U.S. But he said they are working with some lawyers, but there's nothing certain.
Yeah, my fear about that whole situation was they were already on a plane back to, Nepal or wherever they're from.
Well, nobody knows. And ICE has not said anything. And we're trying to dig in to what ICE is supposed to do, how they're supposed to list people that are in jail. And it's we're working on it. It's a very complicated and very isolated system that has never seen the light of day, I don't think, and it's probably never had this much attention. So
I just don't understand why they're not.
How we can't get to the bottom of it. It's sooner or later.
I mean, if they think these are proper actions, tell people why.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the reason they don't, because they're not proper actions. But we're to Will's credit, he did not want to go into that at all or get political, and that's fine. We get it. The university is there mainly to help these students. And it sounds like they're getting great support, so we have that piece of information for you. And again, please share that part of the podcast. But we had a demonstration on campus yesterday, protest. Many people showed up, not just students, but community members, to support these students. And I think it was heartening, hopefully, for the students to see that. We covered that in a big front page story today, as well as using reporter, editor Emma Olson, right?
Johnson.
Emma
Johnson. Yeah, she is the editor of The Reporter, which is the student newspaper at MSU. And she wrote a really good story. She talked to some students who are international students, and they didn't want to leave their name for obvious reasons, and they spoke to the fear of what's going on right now. So
and it's a really important story to get out there, and we thank Emma for that. We used it in our paper, and it was well done, and I think important voices to hear. So beyond that, we've been chasing down other stories, of course, this week. Last week, building caved in Waseca, apartment building. People had to get out. No one was injured, but kind of very scary, unusual thing. So we did a story on that and interviewed a young mother who had a 2-year-old who needs a place to stay now. So again, we're putting out there things that are happening and letting people know when people need help. So that's what we try to do as well. On the development side, looks like North Mankato is doing some groundwork for possible big expansions to the industrial park. There's been talk about getting a data center, but again, that's something that's very secretive too. We did our due diligence and requested the information North Mankato got from some unknown developer, although they often go by another company that consults with them. But it's information, it's a story we're continuing to follow, but information is difficult to come by. But
Can you describe for people what a data center is?
A data center is, right, it collects billions and billions of pieces of data, and apparently they're now used or needed for all the AI, that is going on. And apparently they're huge users of water and electricity. But there's several of them popping up in Minnesota. Other sites they're looking at other sites. The biggest one I think is in Rosemont. And they were talking about one up north in Benton County. But again, if you got tips for us how to cover data centers, or you run across information and I know the Star Tribune is listed, like North Mankato is a place these places are looking at, but beyond that, they don't have much information.
Okay.
Another famous coach stepping down. We had Don Cruzmark at West. Now we have Joe Madsen.
Joe Madsen,
right?
That's right, at East.
At East, basketball coach, 24 years.
Long time, yeah.
And a lot of success. Last 2 years, runner-up at state. Great to see him getting a little relief, but also another stellar record that Mankato sports folks can.
Would have been nice to see him get that.
I know.
That title
One
at the end there
state
with his son, right? On the team? Yeah.
Yes, Brogan, son. Yeah, it would have been.
I mean, they did very, very well. I mean,
they did very well, and they have had a continually. I always like to see consistent programs. They're good year after year after year, because that tells you something. That tells you even the kids are moving on. The coach still in the program is still solid. They're teaching,
and the pipeline
kids.
is good.
And the pipeline is good, and they're teaching kids, and they're helping them be winners to the best of their abilities. So you always like to see that. A sad story. Dennis Vosica, the young, energetic, according to many people, smiling night clerk at Quick Trip who was murdered. Recently they had a vigil for him. That case is going forward. They're having a competency hearing for the person who murdered them. They were a member of a nearby, I don't know if you want to call it group home, a facility.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, that they work with these people in. And so a sad story that comes across our pages every once in a while. It is good to see, though, remembering individuals, and that's what we try to do. We shouldn't forget South Central student had a visa revoked Tuesday as well.
We should check in with them and see if they have any more.
Yeah, it sounds like MSU is maybe doing regular checks on this, because it was in the Star Tribune 8 today, but now they say 12. So they got 1,700 students. I'm going to say it's going to be more than 12.
We should get that in the paper.
Yeah. We will. Supportive housing project moves forward. Good to see.
Yep.
We got the money for it. It's not going to be the emergency homeless shelter, but it's going to be pretty nice, and it looks like going to help people transition out of homelessness. And then next year we're going to get the piece for the emergency shelter. So trying to take care of everybody here. Got my quote of the week.
All right.
We ready to wrap it up?
Let's hear it.
So this is from an international student who was in our story today, the story that Emma Johnson did, reporter. Here's the quote. "I'm scared they will throw me back to my country or send me to a detainment center, and my friends and family won't know where I am, and I won't be able to contact them."
I think that kind of sums up the fear they probably all have to a certain extent.
Can you imagine that?
No.
Having that fear?
No.
I can't either. We're so used to our freedom and our Americanism and our whatever.
Yeah.
So just think of those folks in your mind, and maybe like Will suggested, try to embrace people if you see them and tell them you support them. But that's about all we've got for now. Sponsor one more time. Sponsors, podcast sponsored by Minnesota Valley Federal Credit Union. Happily serving those who live, work, or do business in Blue Earth, Nicollet, LeSueur, Waseca, Brown, or Watonwan counties since 1934. Thanks to them, and thanks to you for listening.
Thanks, folks.